This is IBM Museum. This video is going to be more PS2 related, but not in a way that people think. I'm going to get turned around here and start showing what I'm going to present on this video. And we have the IBM ThinkCentre that I've got loaded up with Windows XP 32-bit, and this is the IBM model of the ThinkCentre, likely shortly before the switch to Lenovo. And on the back, we have the VGA connection and PS2 ports. Now I'm on a workstation that's this size. I really like having the VGA and PS2 ports for a reason, that I go through and use them on what's called a KVM, or keyboard video mouse unit. And this is a unit that just has the two inputs with this long string of cables here that connect on to two systems. And then you have the connections that actually go to the keyboard and mouse and to your VGA display. And clearly I'm going with the older VGA style connection, not something modern. And it's a thought that all the units I have going through the KVM have those PS2 and video connections, or those PS2 and VGA connection. Now, I'm not sure if it's switched with the Lenovo models. Here's the Lenovo ThinkCentre. This is the one that I have the Vista 32-bit loaded on. And of course the Vista 64-bit system I have is identical. Same exact model. And on the back, we have the VGA connection. And I mean, they've gone through and added display port on there as well for more capable video. But there's no PS2 connections that we can see until we see this little breakout here, this little spot here. And there is a available option that you can find out there, and I'll pull this item up to show a picture of it. In fact, let me go through, briefly flash a picture of it on the screen so we can see it up close, and then I'll go through and describe and show the connection on the motherboard inside. So we want to do that. And this, with the short cable, is a part number FRU of 43N9149. And these things are all over, and they're on even on eBay auction sites that show a mass of cables, and then you see that you're only getting one, but it has a price tag of like $50. It maybe makes people think they're getting a whole bunch, although I don't know how many that they need of this. But you can find them for under $10 USD, including the shipping, to get them to you. And I've ordered actually a few more of these. And so on the inside of this unit, and I really don't have to open it up much more to get the drive carrier out of the way, because I might just flip this drive carrier up and out of the way just to be able to show where the cable goes to. Okay, so you generally look around. I mean, there should be a connection for the, it's a 2x4 header, but it has one corner of that blocked out, just as a orientation process. You can only plug it in the one way. So actually on these ThinkCentres, and I was surprised because it's typically more closer to where that breakout is here on the back of the case, but the plugs in here, and this one is not quite a length to reach to the back. Now there is a longer model. Let me put this up on the screen again. There's actually a longer model that's got probably twice or three times the length of the cable. That's a 43N9147 is the part number. So the ending two digits are 47 instead of 49 like this one. Try finding that one. You can. I've seen one picture. I had a friend that dug around. He's very familiar with the IBM part numbers, and he found a picture of one. Shows a longer cable. I would sure like to find a source. If somebody is aware of the source for the 43N9147, please let me know. Because what I may have to do is just make my own extension. And in this case, I'm wanting to preserve the ends. I would like to cut in the middle and actually splice in a cable, just one for one wires in here that I've got enough leads. I've got 7 leads ultimately. Maybe a short piece of like UDP untwisted shielded or untwisted pair, unshielded, that network cabling that I have around or something like that, maybe to extend that if it comes down to it. Now, I do want to have this leave this plugged in just to kind of show, and we can put the drive carrier in it. I'm clearly not going to close the case because I can't get this to a position where I can access it otherwise. But let's go through, and I'll get let's set that aside for the moment. It's just another option that I'll show. And I'm actually going to go through and I'll plug the keyboard side, the purple side. These are color coded. And make sure I get the right orientation on that. Flat side towards the mouse side of the connector, and I'll actually connect in a scroll mouse into that green side, that color code side, instead of the trackpad on my little keyboard, my little IBM keyboard. And I can probably unspool this cable from around the mouse. Go through with the VGA connection. Okay. And we can plug the network cable in just because, not real critical, but, and then lastly our power. So we have the minimum amount of connectors here. Initially flash the keyboard lights. But we're going to go ahead and I want to actually have the screen capture showing. And I have this set for a higher resolution, that's what the computer runs when it starts up. Now, what we want to be ready with is I can probably Let me, yeah. Bring up, and what we want to do is when we have the keyboard here, we want to have control of this F1 key when we power up the system. Because as the logo shows, okay, so and I pressed F1 and it did react, but I pressed other keys and so it reacted more to that. Let's get back to the, okay. And F1 there shows help. Okay, so this is the screen that we should have after we press that F1 and on power up. And only when the logo is showing. If you press, and I can demonstrate that on another system later on, because, and that's going to, that logo is going to show with a hard reboot or a hard boot rather than or cold reboot, rather than meaning pressing the power button and the system powering on, rather than a warm reboot. If the system's running, you do Control-Delete. It's going to go in, it's going to skip a lot of the initial post-test that it ran on that first start, and it normally would not display the logo. Although we may have models like this one that you can access, you can stop it, and in time to, by pressing that enter key or whatever, to get into where you can press F1 or otherwise have it go into the system setup. Now, for this, okay, now under some of these Lenovo ThinkCentre systems, there is a particular setting that you want to have disabled. And of course, if it's enabled, then you're likely having a USB keyboard anyway, as you would if you didn't have this little adapter. So you're going in there with your USB keyboard and you're saying this to legacy free disabled. And legacy free, I think the only thing it really disables is, in this case, is the PS2 ports. It's figuring that under a default ThinkCentre, you don't have that little adapter, so why enable the PS2 ports? But you want to be sure to go through and have that disabled if you have that setting in your ThinkCentre. Now, I have other ThinkCentres that do not have, in later BIOS, I even worried for a time that if you go through and you upgrade the BIOS over time, if you get a new BIOS version, there's a possibility that Lenovo could even go through and turn that off. But for the ThinkCentres I have that have that connection on the motherboard, it functions in some form, whether it's this BIOS setting or not, of making it so legacy free is disabled. In the units that don't have the setting of legacy free, my observation is that connection works, that adapter works. You don't have to go in there and set it in BIOS. And I've got the latest BIOS on like my M81 Tower system, and we'll be getting back to that in just a moment here as well. I don't have the unit here, but I'm going to do a description of that as well. So don't worry, but your mileage can vary. Don't take it as my authentic word that, hey, I've got that connection on the motherboard, so I'm going to order that part, and I'm going to do it off of eBay. I'm going to get tricked into ordering just one for $50, and then I'm going to complain when it doesn't work. Your mileage should, may vary. It's at your own risk for going through and getting that adapter and coming to the point where it works and plugging it in correctly. I'm not going to be liable for anything that you do with your system. So as long as you check that, and I want to go through, I probably don't need to do anything more necessarily to boot the system, I don't think. I'm just going to go through and, okay. And we'll just do a save changes and exit. And I'm just going to go through and power down. There's not really any need for me to go into the operating system for all that because I'm going to describe. Okay. I'm going to describe some of the areas on another system here. Let's just go through and we're going to pull that header off. We can probably go through. Oh, get the right thing. Okay. Okay, so, and I'll go through and I'll close the lid on that. We're going to go through and unplug. We won't need to necessarily plug in anything on the next system. Get this down off to the side as well. Okay. And this is a ThinkCentre that's a little bit. Where's my focus off? Okay. This is a ThinkCentre M53 lowercase p. And we just press the latch. These other ThinkCentres, they have a latch, including like the tower models, that you just push on the side to bring that panel up and off. And we have a shroud. Okay. On this one, a fan shroud. But it does go through and we just pull the latches. And this one has the connection very close. Okay. That it's just right over here. And I want to see how it's keywayed. Because I want to demonstrate on this one there's not any legacy free setting in the BIOS. This system actually does not have an operating system right now. I don't even have an SSD drive in there yet. This is the way I receive the system. I'm going to be putting in a SSD later on. Okay. And we don't need the network connection at all since we're and I mean there's no need for me to put the shroud on there initially for the fan shroud. Let's go through, bring back up the screen capture. And just to show, okay, briefly shows that Lenovo logo. And what I want to demonstrate is gone on to other points in the process. If I go F1, it says And it's kind of good for that it doesn't have an operating system. So it just cycles through this over and over and over again. And I can try and break in by pressing that F1 key, and it doesn't. I can do Control-Delete F1. And it's not going to show that Lenovo logo back on the screen. Okay, fan stopped. And we go through to power on. We see the Lenovo. And I press that F1, and I'm in. Just to show, and this is the same structure of the BIOS settings, even though I likely have a newer, well, there might even be a newer BIOS on this one. Now this is, I think it's an i5, and my M81 Tower ThinkCentre of Lenovo is an i7. So very capable CPUs. We're getting into Windows territory, which I'm going to address in a moment as well. So this one doesn't have the same, I mean, there's not any, all the setup here for serial and USB is independent to those functions. There's not anything about the legacy support. Even though the USB setup, you can individually disable USB ports on this model. I mean, the granularity is that good. Now there's a USB legacy support, and I think that is probably concerning having, you know, a USB keyboard or basic device connected to the system that is shown there. But it's not relating to the PS2 ports in particular, from what I see. So there's no, you know, equivalent setup there. And we'll just let it exit out of the this. And I maybe could have gone through, and we're going to go through and we'll power down. I'm gonna pull the header off of there for the moment. And just put the cover on just so I have a display surface. Because otherwise, if you just have USB and you're not able to enable PS2, I mean, another option is to have one of these adapters. I guess I need to have the overhead on. So, and I run some Triplite KVMs, keyboard video mouse switches, and this is the dual model. And these are available from non-branded, for typically very economically priced. And this has a long USB cable, and you can get single versions of these as well. You just have an uncolored port that can be used for a mouse or keyboard. I do something like that for running my firewall, which normally doesn't have a mouse input. I just have a single connection for the keyboard, and I don't use the mouse connection for my firewall at home, and run it through a KVM switch. And so it has a where I can get on and see the firewall screen and have keyboard input, but it doesn't worry about that mouse aspect. And I've seen these when they don't necessarily have a keyboard or a mouse connected to them, kind of act in funny ways too. But you could go through and you could get this adapter to provide that adaptation from USB to the PS2 ports for use in like a KVM. And I thought I almost had the part number, but you can find these pretty easily. Now I'm going to turn around, and I guess I could have got the shroud back on the system once I pull that. So I'll be going through and actually at a later point, once I receive those other brackets, I'll be going through and bringing out that block out and installing the adapter. And these include the screws that you use on either side. And I don't really think it matters. They're kind of universal. You put them one way or the other. Well, I guess they have icons for mouse and keyboard, so it would go in this orientation with the green towards this way, towards your mouse connection. And on this unit, the connection is close enough to that breakout panel, so this works. I would still love to find the longer cable version of that. So the last little bit of this, and we're 26 minutes now, is that you can get one of these. My fair notice as well. If you watch the first part of this video and you go out there and you get this adapter and you plug it in, and you already have something like Windows 10 loaded on your system, and you go through and you have a mouse and keyboard connected up to those PS2 ports, and you disconnect the USB keyboard and mouse that you have, and it boots into Windows, and all of a sudden you don't have mouse and keyboard. It doesn't look like it works. It worked under the BIOS, where you were able to press the F1 key and you can get into those BIOS settings, but you start up Windows 10 and it just doesn't use that. And you say, man, that IBM museum, he led me wrong. I didn't watch the end part of his video, but he got me to buy something. It doesn't work fully in Windows. And if you install Windows 10 in this instance, although that probably goes back a couple steps, I didn't know if I wanted to pull up on. Let's do that. Let's look to see. I guess we could go through. That would be descriptive enough. I mean, I could have gone through and scripted this video better, but I wanted to see if that particular setting, and we're in Windows Vista 32-bit, the system that we had up before. Let me get it quickly connected. I'm going to go through. In this instance, I won't open up the case. And I'm going to go through. Yeah, see, if I'd have been more organized, I could have gone through. And for this, we will connect up the separate mouse again onto that USB. Okay. So we're using that USB adapter. Instead of having a separate USB keyboard and okay, and these are weird after you plug in. Do you plug them into power? Okay, there. Okay. And I don't know, I don't think that is because of the and get the keyboard out in front of me here and go through a little bit of this long boot up sequence. Okay. I may want to have the... Oh, and I think it's sensing on the... Oh, that's going to be interesting because I don't have any light on my mouse. And the one downside to Windows that you can have a PS2 mouse that's disconnected at the start of things, and if you have it powered on the system, it doesn't recognize your mouse until you power it off and power it back on. I'm going to find out if we can get to the point where, okay. I'll just have to go, oh, I didn't have, I think the warning message was from me just pressing that power button too many times. It helps if I have the actual USB connection in there, right? In fact, I may have messed myself up entirely. No, at least I did not. I thought I was having to pull out another USB keyboard and mouse just to get somewhere. Okay. And my keyboard's flashing at me. Okay. We're just going to go through. Man, if I had edited video, I could go through and I could edit all this out. We're just going to run with it. If I could actually see the screen here. We're going to do restart. I still have my keyboard blinking away here. I'm going to find out if... Yeah. Okay. So it blinks. Here is what we'll do then. Okay. USB adapter out of the way. And I'll just rely on, I mean, I'm certain that the mouse will work here. And the keyboard. And I could have gone through for even more time, and I could have connected up the trackball portion. Start Windows normally. It just says, hey, what are you doing? Booting me up multiple times. Get this off. Get me off to the side here enough out of the way. Okay. Because I'm interested in if the And I went through looking online for a way to go through and enable this. And we're going to swoop this up to the big screen. I just can't see anything on that tiny screen. And this is what worked for me, was to go in HKey local machine, system, current control set, services, big long list here. Scroll down to I8042 PRT for port. And that's the keyboard controller. Just means keyboard controller port. Okay, and it has a setting in here. So this start item, if you go through and you can use your USB keyboard and mouse to get into the registry editor, and you want to change this value to 1, just like it is here. And then okay, and you have to restart your computer with those changes. And so again, that is under your computer, HKey, local machine, system, current control set, services, and then that I8042 PRT for port, I guess. And so once you have that set to 1 and you restart the computer, you will have the functionality of that connection from that adapter. And that's what you do in the case where you've installed Windows without having a PS2 keyboard, and it's gone through and activated that because it thinks that that's an older legacy system, that it's not required for that. So we did have a little detours and everything else of me getting things displayed as a good way to be able to show the way to use that adapter on your system, even in the point where you've installed Windows without a PS2 keyboard and mouse. And if anyone, by all means, a comment, if you find that other adapter, that 43N9147 with a longer cable, please let me know. And I won't really provide any link for this, not like I'm getting any money for it, and you can find these things all over. If you're within the United States, like I say, under $10 USD seems to be the price. And these, I think, for the listing, especially being Lenovo, I think mine were shipping from China anyway. And they do have it marked as a IBM ThinkCentre. As I say, I don't know where the Divine Line was. I don't know if there's IBM ThinkCentres out there. Most likely there is. That may have not have the PS2 ports on the motherboard, but they have this little connector, this little 7-pin 2x4 pin connector for that. So it was about PS2s. Maybe not what people think, but to have the this off-the-wall content and all these flubs and everything else I do to it, if you enjoy those, click on that like button. If you thought this video was informative, for being coming up on 40 minutes now, but subscribe to my channel and we'll have this continued off-the-wall content. And as you may have noticed in viewing behind me, I've got that 65SX cleared off for now off my bench. I had to move on to other things. Once I get a little bit better grasp, I'll get back to that OS2 2.0 installation, and hopefully we can get it actually running the operating system, loading it correctly, and working for me to demonstrate that further. But what the hey. So that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.